Welcome to MLS English Podcast, the show where English learning meets mindset growth. Whether you're here to boost your vocabulary, speak with confidence, or build a strong, unstoppable mindset, you're definitely in the perfect place. Get ready for powerful tips, real conversations, and high energy that will move you forward. This is more than just a podcast. This is your new routine for success. Today, we're embarking on a really interesting deep dive. We're looking into personal transformation. Understanding those subtle shifts that actually lead to profound change, whether that's mastering English or, chasing any ambitious personal goal.
It really is a compelling subject, isn't it? We see people making these incredible leaps seemingly out of nowhere sometimes, while others just feel perpetually stalled, stuck. And it's not just luck. It really points to these fundamental principles, things we can actually learn about.
Exactly. And what's really insightful, I think, is how these principles apply everywhere. Like, take learning English. At first, it can feel just overwhelming, right? A huge mountain of words and rules. But then, with consistent effort, that mountain, well, it starts to look more like a path you can actually walk.
That's such a powerful parallel. Yes. The journey isn't just about cramming more facts or vocabulary. It's deeply tied to building consistent habits, shifting your mindset, being more flexible, and actively integrating what you learn.
So the big revelation here isn't some single, dramatic moment. It's actually built on this bedrock of small, consistent adjustments, things we do day after day.
And that is precisely the core of our deep dive today. We're going to dissect the science, the psychology behind making those incremental changes work for you to genuinely improve your life.
Okay, but before we really unpack all of that, we wanted to let you know about something special. We've put together a free PDF. It's got practical exercises right from today's discussion. Key takeaways, comprehension questions, even some grammar exercises, all to help you apply these ideas and, build that confidence in your English.
That's right. And as we go through this, we'll also be highlighting some useful intermediate level words and phrases, things that pop up naturally as we explore these concepts.
Yeah, and we'll take a closer look at those later in Charlotte's vocabulary section. Charlotte will break them down, show you how to use them in real conversations. So definitely stick around for that. By the end, you'll have concrete, actionable steps to help transform your life and some new English vocabulary to express your progress even better.
Okay, so let's kick things off by considering why. Why do so many of us find these gradual shifts so challenging? I mean, change sounds exciting in theory, doesn't it? A fresh start. But often, a lot of people struggle to even begin, let alone keep it going.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. Why is change so difficult sometimes? What's going on there?
Well, one really pervasive barrier is the classic fear of failure. We ask ourselves, what if I try this and I just fall flat on my face? But the flip side, the question we maybe don't ask enough is, what if I try and actually succeed? Really successful people, they tend to see failure differently, not as an endpoint, but more like data, a necessary part of learning.
That's interesting. And here's something else that's really insightful. A second common hurdle is often this lack of clear direction. People know they want something better, a better life maybe, but they're paralyzed. They feel like they need this perfect, detailed map before taking even one step.
Right, analysis paralysis.
Exactly. When really, just starting, just moving, even without the full picture, is way more productive.
And this brings up a really important point, especially when we look inward. What about negative self-talk? Telling yourself things like, oh, I'll never be good at this, or I'm just not a language person, or those thoughts, they can just stop progress dead in its tracks before it even gets a chance to start. They become self-fulfilling.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's one of the biggest traps, I think.
Yeah.
Waiting for motivation. We say, okay, I'll start learning English properly when I feel motivated. Or I'll start exercising when I feel ready. But here's the counterintuitive secret, isn't it? Motivation usually comes after you start taking action, not before.
Yes. That really hits home for me personally. I remember this challenge I kept putting off, always waiting for that perfect moment to start. And, well, it never really arrived, not until I just forced myself to take one tiny, imperfect first step. And the moment I did that, suddenly this sense of momentum started building. The desire followed the action.
I completely get that. I felt exactly the same when I first started seriously learning English. That little voice inside kept saying, this is too hard. You're not good at this. But the real turning point was realizing the only way to get better was to actually start practicing, regardless of how ready or skilled I felt.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? It means that recognizing these common roadblocks, the fear, the fuzzy direction, that negative inner voice, waiting for the lightning bolt of motivation that's the critical first step. Once you see them, you can actually start working on dismantling them.
Okay, so now that we understand what tends to hold us back, the next big question is, how do we actually start making those changes happen, how we move forward?
Right, and that's where this idea of small daily improvements becomes so powerful. People often get caught up thinking they need some huge dramatic transformation overnight, but real lasting change, it happens gradually, incrementally. Have you heard about the 1% rule?
Yes. I love that concept, the idea that if you just improve by 1% every day, over a year you end up something like 37 times better. It's amazing how those tiny efforts compound, isn't it? Like earning interest in a bank account.
Precisely. And it ties directly into the power of habits. Small changes might not seem like much day to day, but they do more than just get you results. Over time, they actually start to redefine your identity, who you believe you are.
Right, like just reading for 10 minutes a day. Or practicing English for just 5 minutes every single day. Or even something internal, like consciously replacing a negative thought with a positive one. They don't feel like huge sacrifices, but the cumulative effect is massive.
And the real-life examples really back this up. I know someone who became remarkably fluent in English, their secret, just listening to one English podcast episode every single day. They didn't start with some intense, overwhelming study plan. It was that consistent, small step.
Wow, that's genuinely inspiring. It really shows the power of consistency. So what this means for you listening is, if you're wondering where to even begin, just pick one small, manageable habit, something you can do today. Don't overthink it.
Exactly. But, while taking action is crucial, there's something maybe even more fundamental underneath it all. And that's our mindset, how we actually think about change, about our abilities. That makes all the difference.
Absolutely. You hear about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, right? If you have a growth mindset, you believe fundamentally, okay, I can improve with effort, I can learn. But with a fixed mindset, it's more like, my talent is what it is. I'll probably never be great at this.
Yeah.
And that difference in belief is huge. It really shapes your outcomes.
Yeah, and if we connect this to how our brains work, it's fascinating. Our brain is actually kind of wired to focus on what we train it to notice. Have you ever heard of the reticular activating system, the RAS?
Yes. Isn't that the thing where, like, you learn a new word and suddenly you start hearing it everywhere, or you decide you want a certain type of car and then you see it all over the road?
Exactly. That's your RAS at work. It acts like a filter, highlighting information that matches what you're focusing on, consciously or unconsciously. So think about the implications. If you keep telling yourself, I can't do this, guess what? Your brain will actively look for evidence to prove you right. But if you start feeding it affirmations like, I am improving every day, or I'm figuring this out, your brain shifts its focus. It starts noticing the progress, the opportunities. That's why consciously reprogramming your mind, your internal dialogue, is so incredibly powerful.
Okay, so how do we do that? What are some practical ways? Well, 3 great techniques are affirmations, visualization, and gratitude. Simple, positive self-talk, like consistently saying, I am getting better at English every day, actually helps reshape those thought patterns.
And visualization, really seeing yourself succeeding, maybe having that fluent conversation that kind of tricks your brain. It makes it believe it's possible, preparing it for the reality. And let's not forget, gratitude practice. Seriously powerful. When you regularly focus on what is going well, what you're thankful for, you train your brain to spot opportunities instead of just dwelling on the obstacles.
That really is the power of mindset, isn't it? It's not some kind of magic wishful thinking. It's about actively training your brain to work for you, not against you.
Okay, so we've talked about mindset, but building on that, there's another big thing that holds people back. It's this tendency to wait. Wait for the perfect moment to start.
Oh, yes. This is so common, isn't it? So many people think, I need to be completely ready. I need to know everything before I take the first step. But the truth is, you're probably never going to feel 100% ready. That feeling might never come.
Exactly. And the evidence shows that progress usually comes before confidence, not the other way around. I remember when I was first really pushing myself to speak English more, I hesitated so much. I kept thinking, what if I make mistakes? What if I sound stupid? And honestly, the more I waited, the bigger the fear became.
That's so relatable. I think everyone learning a language feels that. So what happened when you finally just went for it?
Well, once I actually started speaking, even with the fumbles and errors, I realized something important. Mistakes weren't the end of the world. They were actually part of the learning process. Essential even. Each conversation, even the imperfect ones, built a tiny bit more confidence. I wasn't perfect, far from it, but I was getting better. And I could feel it.
And that is the absolute key. There's this concept I love, done is better than perfect. Too many people get stuck because they want everything to be just right before they start. But the reality is, Taking imperfect action is always, always better than taking no action at all while you wait for perfection.
Absolutely. If you wait for perfect, you might wait forever. You'll never get started. So whether it's learning English, starting a new habit, making a big life change, just begin. Those small, maybe clumsy first steps are what lead to big improvements down the line.
Okay, so here's a little challenge for you listening right now. Think of one thing, just one thing you've been putting off. Maybe it was practicing speaking English for 5 minutes, or starting that workout, or sending that email, and then just take one small step towards it today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Because action creates momentum, and momentum builds confidence.
That's it exactly. Small, consistent actions repeated over time. That's how massive change happens. So seriously, don't wait for that elusive, perfect moment. Make today the day you start.
Speaking of taking action and making things happen, have you ever stopped to think about how much our surroundings actually shape us, our habits, our decisions? It's not just internal willpower, is it? It's also about who and what we surround ourselves with.
Oh, absolutely fundamental. It's huge. The people you spend time with, the kind of information you consume, the general vibe or mindset of your environment, all of these play a massive role, often more than we realize, in shaping our path.
Yeah. There's that famous saying, right? You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense. If you're constantly around negative, unmotivated people, it's really hard to stay positive and driven yourself.
Yeah.
But flip that. If you're around positive, ambitious, goal-oriented people, their energy, their habits, they sort of rub off on you, don't they?
They absolutely do. So the fascinating question becomes, how can we intentionally create an environment that supports our growth? Well, first, start actively seeking out and following inspirational people. This could be authors, speakers, maybe even just positive accounts on social media. Exposing yourself consistently to those influences, it genuinely shifts your mindset over time.
And joining online communities is another fantastic way, especially for learning. There are so many groups out there for English learners, like you said, book clubs, personal development groups. When you're part of a community where growth is the norm, where people support each other, you naturally start improving too. It creates accountability and connection.
Right. And just as important as adding the positive is sometimes reducing the negative. That could mean limiting time with people who constantly complain or drain your energy, or maybe even just cutting back on doom-scrolling news or social media that leaves you feeling depleted. Protecting your energy is key.
That reminds me so much of when I was really struggling with my English. I felt so stuck on my own. But then I joined an online English learning group. And suddenly, I wasn't alone. I had people to practice with, people who understood the struggles, people to celebrate the small wins with. That community feeling, that shared environment, it made all the difference for me.
That's such a perfect example. The right environment, it creates this positive feedback loop. It builds momentum. It just makes it easier to grow and stay on track with what you want to achieve.
So here's something for you to think about, listening now. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with, roughly speaking? Are they genuinely helping you grow? Or are they maybe, unintentionally, holding you back? They're not pushing you, inspiring you. Maybe it's time to make some conscious adjustments. Surround yourself with people and influences that uplift you, that inspire you to be better. And speaking of inspiration, sometimes just learning new words and phrases helps us talk about our goals, our mindset, even better, which is exactly why we have Charlotte here. She's going to break down some of the key vocabulary from today's deep dive.
Absolutely. Let's hear from Charlotte. Take it away.
Hello, English learners. It's time for Charlotte's vocabulary breakdown. In today's discussion, we touched on some really great concepts about change, mindset, and environment. Let's take a closer look now at some useful intermediate level vocabulary that came up and explore how you can use them in your own real-life conversations. Charlotte provides specific words, definitions, and example sentences. For example, profound, incrementally, pervasive, dismantle, cumulative, saboteur, trajectory, rub off on, etc. That's it for today's vocabulary breakdown. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Those were some really, really useful words and phrases, great additions to anyone's vocabulary. So as we start to wrap up, if we had to boil everything down, leave our listeners with just one key takeaway from today's deep dive, what would you say it is?
Just one. I'd say it's this. You really do have more control over your life, over its direction, than you probably think. It comes down to those small, consistent changes, cultivating that growth mindset we talked about, and intentionally building a supportive environment. Those 3 things together, they can genuinely transform your life.
That's so true. So powerful. And just remembering that progress, real transformation, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But every single step you take, no matter how small it feels, it is getting you closer to where you want to be.
Definitely. And hey, don't forget about that free PDF guide we mentioned. It's packed with practical exercises, the vocabulary, all designed to help you really reinforce what we've talked about today and put it into action.
Yes, grab that. And also let us know. We genuinely want to hear from you. What's one small change, just one thing that you're committing to making today? Share it with us.
All right, that's a wrap for today's episode on MLS English Podcast. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, make sure to subscribe, perhaps leave us a review that always helps, and share this episode with someone you know who's serious about growing, both in English and in life. Keep practicing, keep pushing forward, and we'll see you in the next one. Let's grow together.